Hey there guys, and welcome to Classic Week here on Whoedics Reviews. I'm Matthew Rowney, and even though we're only 2/3 of the way through Classic Week, I am only just getting started, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a review of one hell of a classic story, the debut of Sarah Jane Smith, the debut of the Sontarans. I'm going to be reviewing, of course, The Time Warrior. So stick around guys, and enjoy. So then here it is, my well-awaited review of The Time Warrior. Now I was originally going to review Destiny of the Daleks, but after quite a bit of consideration, when you've got the choice between Destiny of the Daleks and a story that has Sarah Jane Smith, the Sontarans and Jon Pertwee, there's no real choice. Just also to hint this out, because he really wanted me to give him the credit. This is not my DVD, this is James's DVD. He really wanted me to mention that for some reason. When we did go shopping, I bought Destiny of the Daleks, but I decided to review this because it's The Time Warrior, come on. But yeah, a few facts about The Time Warrior to begin with. It's in 4 parts. It was aired between the 15th of December 1973 and the 5th of January 1974. It was written by Robert Holmes, who in his own right is a fantastic Doctor Who classic writer. He's written episodes such as The Crotons, he's written The Deadly Assassin itself, he's written Terror of the Autons, and Jon Pertwee's first episode, Spearhead from Space. So as soon as I seen his name credited, I knew I was in for a very, very good episode. As I've said, it was the debut of Sarah Jane Smith and the Sontarans. And also a fun fact for you that I found out while researching on this episode is the name Gallifrey is actually spoken for the first time. A fantastic scene when the Doctor is confronting Lynx, he is called the Sontaran, as they are talking about where they're from and their species. The Doctor just says, Gallifrey, I'm a Time Lord. But yeah, the plot basically, if I was to sum it up, quite a few things are happening in past and present to begin with, which is a brilliant writing by Robert Holmes, which I'll get to. But basically, a Sontaran named Lynx crashes in medieval England, and after showing his enhanced technology to the Vikings, I think they were Vikings anyway, they go back to their castle, and they basically get Lynx to build them some, well, enhanced weaponry for using his Sontaran technology, and he ends up building the Vikings things like rifles, which obviously weren't invented until centuries later, so as the Doctor did brilliantly quote, you are messing with human evolution, brilliant. And at the same time, he is basically saying, I will build you enhanced weapons if you let me use your castle to repair my ship, because the goal of Lynx the Sontaran is to get scientists from the future to rebuild his ship so he can get back to the war with the Rootans, and this is where it links in with UNIT. He said that he has a certain amount of power, so he could only go as far forward as the 20th century, so he steals or kidnaps scientists from present day in UNIT, which obviously is where the Doctor is, and he hypnotises them when they are brought back to medieval England to repair his ship, and the Doctor therefore is summoned by UNIT to investigate these disappearances. And throughout episode 1, the way that we were having scenes in the past and then the present, and they were kind of going parallel to each other, then intertwining, was clever writing from Robert Holmes. It was a fantastic story in the fact that it was basically saying, you know, you mess with the past, it changes the future, and the way that it was talking about human evolution was very good as well. But yeah, the Doctor was investigating these disappearances. He tracks the Sontaran back to medieval England, and then things start to get really interesting because, obviously, before they go there, a certain Sarah Jane Smith is introduced, a journalist who isn't really the journalist she made herself out to be. She was actually faking as someone else, and turns out that she's got plenty of questions for the Doctor, and when looking for the last professor to be kidnapped, who I think is called Dr. Rubish, who is absolutely hilarious. He's like brilliant comic relief in this episode. Yeah, she goes looking for him in the TARDIS, and then obviously gets herself in medieval England. And to begin with, Sarah Jane is basically in denial about being in medieval England. It's really funny. She's like going up to the Vikings and saying, you know, you're actors, I'm on a film set. It was really, really funny. And turns out she thinks that the Doctor is actually a bad guy and working for the guy who's head of the Vikings. There he is there, you can't probably see it. Next to the Sontaran, he's called Irongron. And Irongron is basically at civil war, really, with the king over the kingdom. and their territory, and he's got a lot more men than the king has, so he feels as if he's got the advantage. And now also, as you can see, it's the scene where the Sun Tyrant meets Angron. He builds him enhanced weapons. So that was episode 1, really. It went on to Sarah Jane being very confident. She was so confident. I mean, the one thing that I loved about Sarah Jane, and this is probably what made her one of the greatest companions ever, is she adapted to this time-travelling life really easily. I mean, one minute she's being dead stubborn, kicking and flailing herself around to a kidnapping Viking. Next minute she's barking out orders to the king, you know, saying how they're going to kidnap the Doctor because she thought he was the bad guy. Just brilliant how she's adapted to the environment so quickly, and that's probably why she is one of the greatest companions, if the greatest of all time. They went on to a bit of conflict. The Doctor got kidnapped by Sarah Jane, and the king and his men took back to the castle, where obviously the revelation that the Doctor is not the bad guy. And so they join forces, and this is where Sarah Jane gets to learn quite a bit more about the Doctor and time travelling and the TARDIS and everything. And this is when their chemistry really starts to build. And you can really see the Doctor-companion relationship building from this moment. So I think Iron men then attack, using the enhanced weaponry from Lynx. They attack the King's Castle where the Doctor and Sarah is. They fight them off, and then the Doctor decides to infiltrate Iron castle because he realises that's where the scientists are. I must say the way that he infiltrates the castle to begin with is a bit weird. He literally walks through the doors. I mean, he does an awesome karate chopping moment where he gets both the guards and he's like, come here, and then hi-yas them. But apart from that, you know, it was highlighted quite heavily throughout this episode that Iron he's got a lot more men than the king, and yet Jon Pertwee's Doctor can just waltz through. I mean, I know he's an awesome Doctor, very suave and sophisticated, but it seemed a bit too simple for me. Nitpick, I guess. But yeah, they go in there, and this is maybe where things start to slow down a bit. The Doctor is, well, kidnapped by Lynx after revealing Lynx's face, and then that awesome confrontation scene. And then the comic relief, Dr. Rubesh, who is absolutely hilarious. Turns out his mind was too superior, and he gets the Doctor to escape. And then loads of conflict follows from that. The Doctor leaves and then comes back again and then leaves again. And I think episode 3 was when the story started to slow down a bit. You know, it was beautifully structured by Robert Holmes throughout episode 1 and 2. And then episode 3 just slowed everything down, and I just kind of found myself kind of dragging my attention through episode 3. I mean, it was a fantastic episode, don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed it, but I just felt as it slowed down a bit. So the Doctor went back, then he went back again as this robot. Basically, Lynx had created a robot for Iron and his men. The Doctor went back, disguised himself as the robot, only to then get kidnapped, to escape again, to then come back to then getting shot by riflemen. They're in a 12-foot room, okay, which is probably the size of my front room. There are 6 men with 6 rifles from the 20th century firing at the Doctor, who is probably walking about 2 miles an hour, dodging all the bullets. It seemed very far-fetched for me, and a scene that just wasn't really needed. I didn't see the point of it, if I'm honest. He escapes, and then for some reason decides, oh, I'm going to use this magic potion or whatever to make all the guards of Irongron's castle fall asleep. Couldn't he have done that in the first place? I mean, I'd hate to criticise this episode, but then he decides to make them all fall asleep. Why couldn't he have done that in the first place? Because that lets them basically walk in to Irongron's castle, and obviously, as I did say earlier, Lynx has got all the scientists trying to repair his ship, and it wasn't repaired in time. And Lynx tries to do a run for it after all the hypnotised scientists are brought back to their senses and they escape. So after he is smacked on the back of the neck, he tries to escape, and his ship explodes basically, and the entire castle goes up in flames with Irongron and all his men, and obviously the Doctor, Sarah, and whoever one of the King's men survives. So for me, overall, looking at the structure of this story, it began very well, it progressed very well, but it got a bit slow. And as I was saying, my conclusion, it would have been better in about 3 parts instead of 4. So I'll read you my written conclusion here. The Time Warrior was a fantastic story, well structured and cleverly written by Robert Holmes. The way he'd written the Affecting the Past, Changing the Future story arc was very good. He'd written, as I said earlier, the scenes from the past and future intertwining with each other. It was a very good introduction to the plot. It could have been a lot more confusing, but he did that very well, and it got across pretty easily to us. The Doctor was always smart, suave and sophisticated, but not all eyes were on him. They were on a certain Sarah Jane Smith, who basically nailed her presence down with a bang in this episode. You know, she came across as a very young, innocent, pretty small woman, who had one hell of a voice on her, I must say. But yeah, she was very hard on the outside, and she was so confident when around enemies and around this new environment, and that's what made her the great companion she is today. She had no fear whatsoever, but at the same time inside had a heart of gold, really. She was curious, brave and elegant young woman, and this was the birth of the greatest companion of all time. I think we can all say that, hands down. And as for the Sontaran, or the Sontaran, Links on his own, I think, it was very menacing. He was very direct as well, and it was probably the best way to introduce the Sontarans, because I will go back to Dalek in 2005. I think if Russell had introduced that Dalek with a fleet behind him, we wouldn't have got across how good and how superior the Daleks really are. You know, Dalek is my favourite modern day story, with the Daleks, and it was just one Dalek, one goal, seeing the light, you know, and I think we learnt more about the superiority of the Daleks with that one Dalek than an entire fleet taking over the universe. And it was the same in this episode with the Sontaran. We got to learn what the Sontarans were, which was basically bloodthirsty, untrustworthy warriors, hungry for blood and war. We got that message came across a lot easier and a lot better in one Sontaran than it could have in a fleet. The acting all round was fantastic, with a great variety of characters I really enjoyed watching. And one thing that really impressed me was the locations. Harry Williams said yesterday in his Why He Loves the Classic Series video that Modern Who viewers and Modern Who lovers, they basically judge the classic series on its lack of CGI. And that is so wrong, as he did highlight. And I must say the locations were absolutely fantastic, very, very believable. As I've said, the build-up was pretty good. It was a bit slow towards the end, but it didn't stop me from loving the story. Overall, I loved it. Very enjoyable, introducing a companion and an enemy that would change Doctor Who forever. I definitely recommend this story if you have not already seen it. So yeah, even though I prefer it as a three-parter, I would happily watch this episode over and over again. So my overall rating is an 8 out of 10 for The Time Warrior, and I'm so glad I could review it, and I will say thank you very much to James for lending me it, before he then starts ranting at me saying, "You used my DVD." As he does. But yes, thank you very much for watching this video, guys. This is the first of 2 videos. If you have not watched my second video, which is how Patrick Troughton changed Doctor Who forever, the link to that video is across the bottom of your screen. But from me, thank you very much for watching. Like this video, subscribe to our channel, and comment your views on The Time Warrior in the comment section below if you like it, dislike it, if you agree with my views or disagree with my views. Also, if you've only just tuned into Classic Week, you've missed a hell of a lot of content. If you want to go back and watch previous videos from Monday onwards, go onto our YouTube homepage on our Classic Doctor Who Week playlist, and you can watch as many Doctor Who Classic Week videos if you want. So thank you very much for watching. I'm Matthew Brownie, and I will see you guys soon. Cheers.